When the facts bend reality, this is beyond plausible.
This phenomenon has been documented in several verified cases where deceased individuals were found after emergency calls were placed from their locations. Forensic analysis typically examines call metadata, including timestamps, location data, and voice recordings. Similar patterns appear in fraud investigations, where automated systems or pre-recorded messages create false emergencies. The time discrepancy between call placement and time of death becomes the central forensic puzzle in these investigations. Investigators must rule out technical explanations like delayed call routing or system errors before considering other possibilities. These cases often involve thorough examination of phone records, security footage, and witness statements to establish accurate timelines. The investigation process follows standard forensic protocols used in suspicious death cases with unusual circumstances. Documented cases show various mechanisms that could explain such discrepancies without supernatural intervention. Emergency dispatch logs are meant to be precise, chronological records of critical communications. The anomalies in question involve entries that appear out of sequence or contain contradictory information. These are not simple typos, but structured inconsistencies that challenge standard operating procedures. Similar patterns have been identified in records from different regions, suggesting a systemic, though rare, issue. The anomalies typically surface during routine audits or investigations into other matters, not through direct reporting. This places them in a category of documented but unexplained flaws within established communication protocols. Analysis often focuses on whether the cause is technical glitch, human error, or a flaw in record-keeping systems. The persistence of such cases across jurisdictions indicates a gap in our understanding of these critical systems. The 911 system operates as a critical first point of contact during emergencies, designed to triage and dispatch help efficiently. Operators are trained to quickly assess the nature of an emergency, whether it's medical, criminal, or related to fire. Standardized protocols guide the conversation to extract key details like location, type of emergency, and immediate threats. This information is logged into a computer-aided dispatch system, which creates a digital record of the incident. Based on the logged data and available resources, the system dispatches appropriate emergency units to the scene. The time from call receipt to unit dispatch is a critical metric, often measured in seconds for life-threatening situations. This process forms a documented chain of events, from the initial report to the response, which can be reviewed later. In fraud or scandal investigations, these call logs become key evidence, providing a time-stamped account of reported events. Emergency responders arrive at the location described by the caller, expecting to find someone in distress. They discover an individual matching the caller's description, or the only person present at the scene. A medical examination immediately reveals the person has been deceased for a significant period. The estimated time of death contradicts the timeline of the recent phone call that summoned them. This creates an immediate investigative paradox. How could a deceased person make a recent call? Such discrepancies often trigger deeper inquiries into possible fraud, mistaken identity, or evidence tampering. In documented cases, similar contradictions have revealed insurance scams, alibi fabrications, or identity theft schemes. The core factual inconsistency here becomes the focal point for determining what actually occurred. The call is logged at a public safety answering point, or PSAP, which serves as the critical first point of contact in emergency response systems. This initial contact is automatically timestamped and recorded, creating a permanent, verifiable digital record of the event. The recording captures the entire exchange between the dispatcher and the individual, identifying as the caller, preserving tone, urgency, and specific details. Such recordings are standard procedure, designed to ensure accuracy in dispatch and provide an objective account for later review. The content of the call, as described, involves a coherent exchange, indicating a two-way communication was established. The caller's voice is noted as sometimes distressed, a common emotional state in emergency situations that dispatchers are trained to manage. This logged call represents the primary, documented fact in the sequence, a fixed point from which any subsequent investigation would begin. The verifiable nature of this record contrasts with later, often unverified, claims that may arise in complex cases. The call for aid specifies a precise location, indicating responders knew exactly where to go. This contrasts with general distress calls, suggesting the caller had specific knowledge of the situation. Upon arrival, medical personnel find the body in a state of advanced decomposition. Advanced death, often determined by rigor mortis, lividity, and body temperature, indicates the individual died hours prior. This timeline creates a critical gap between the time of death and the discovery. In such cases, the scene is treated as a potential crime scene until evidence proves otherwise. The specific call, followed by the discovery of a long-dead body, presents a core investigative puzzle. Forensic investigators rely on specific biological markers to establish time of death with scientific accuracy. Rigor mortis, the stiffening of muscles after death, follows a predictable progression that helps narrow the window. Livor mortis, or lividity, is the pooling of blood in the body's lowest parts due to gravity, creating a telltale discoloration. Body temperature loss, or algor mortis, cools at a generally consistent rate in standard conditions, providing another data point. These indicators are difficult to falsify because they are governed by involuntary biological processes, not conscious control. Trained professionals are skilled at interpreting these signs, making significant errors in time-of-death estimation rare in standard cases. Corroborating this timeline, 911 call records are a crucial piece of investigative data. Call tracing and location data typically verify that an emergency call was placed from a device at or very near the discovery site. This creates a verifiable link between the time of the reported discovery and the physical location of the event. Together, the biological evidence and digital call data form a foundational, factual framework for the initial investigation. The absence of a prank call from a distant location eliminates one common category of false reports in such investigations. This finding is significant because prank calls often involve distorted voices or impossible technical details that can be quickly identified. In many fraud and deception cases, initial false leads are created intentionally to misdirect resources and investigators. The second point notes that initial investigations usually rule out simpler explanations found at the scene. This procedural step is standard. Investigators must first eliminate obvious, mundane possibilities before considering more complex scenarios. In corporate scandals, for example, a simple explanation might be an accounting error, which is investigated and dismissed before uncovering deliberate fraud. The failure to find an obvious explanation at the outset often signals that the incident involves deliberate concealment or sophisticated deception. This phase narrows the focus, shifting the inquiry from accidental causes to intentional acts of misleading or cover-up. The absence of other individuals who could have made the call and fled is a key investigative point. The phone's location often appears logical, not indicating use by another party. This pattern is observed in various documented cases involving unexplained communications. A common misconception is that such calls definitively prove external intervention. The critical unknown is the precise mechanism behind these events. Without understanding the mechanism, conclusions remain speculative. This limitation is a standard challenge in forensic investigations of complex scenarios. Comparisons to other fraud or deception cases show similar gaps in establishing definitive methods. The absence of a verified scientific explanation for a deceased person placing a phone call creates a significant gap in understanding. This informational void often leads to widespread misconceptions about such reported events. A common error is to immediately assume the entire event is a deliberate hoax or a later fabrication. This assumption bypasses other potential explanations, such as technical malfunctions or human error in record-keeping. In documented fraud cases, fabricated evidence is often created to support a false narrative for personal gain. However, the lack of a clear scientific mechanism does not automatically confirm fraud. It simply highlights an unresolved anomaly. This pattern is seen in other complex scandals, where unusual events are prematurely dismissed as impossible. Critical analysis requires separating verifiable facts from the assumptions that fill explanatory gaps. Official dispatch recordings and first responder reports create a significant obstacle for the hoax theory. These documents represent formal, time-stamped records from trained personnel arriving at the scene. For a simple hoax by outsiders to be plausible, it would require falsifying this entire chain of official documentation. This makes such a deception highly unlikely, as it would involve coordinating multiple independent professional sources. Another common misconception involves the reliability of time-of-death estimations in forensic science. Forensic pathology provides an estimated window, not an exact minute, based on body temperature and rigor mortis. While this window can have a margin of error, the discrepancies described in this case are substantial. We are talking about a gap of hours, not minutes, between different professional assessments. To explain this solely as a routine forensic error would require a major, coordinated mistake by multiple responders. This scale of professional inconsistency, alongside the documented official records, points to a more complex situation. Many fraud investigations remain unresolved, with cases left open in official records for years. This lack of closure is common in complex financial schemes where evidence trails grow cold. Unlike fictional narratives, real-world scams often lack dramatic reveals or conclusive endings. Investigative files may contain unexplained entries that never progress to prosecution. This pattern reflects the practical challenges law enforcement faces with limited resources. Without verified perpetrators or confirmed causes, many cases simply remain as unanswered questions. The investigation revealed a stark contradiction between the digital call record and the physical evidence found at the scene. This discrepancy highlights how digital records can conflict with tangible evidence in documented cases. Such contradictions are not uncommon in fraud investigations, where digital trails and physical evidence must be reconciled. The value of examining these cases isn't about finding paranormal explanations. Instead, it's about stress testing our investigative systems and challenging our assumptions. This process reveals vulnerabilities in how evidence is collected and interpreted. Similar patterns appear in corporate fraud cases where digital records contradict physical documentation. The examination serves as a reality check for investigative methodologies across different fields. These incidents force a review of emergency protocol. How does a dispatcher handle a call that later seems impossible? This question underscores the absolute importance of call tracing and recording. These systems provide the only objective data point in an otherwise contradictory event. Without such recordings, investigations rely solely on subjective, often conflicting, human memory. This technological safeguard is a standard practice in modern emergency services worldwide. It transforms ephemeral voice communication into permanent, verifiable evidence. This process is crucial for accountability, training, and resolving factual disputes after critical incidents. This psychological phenomenon is known as apotemnophilia, where the brain's natural tendency to create causal links is disrupted. Normally, when we hear distress and discover evidence, our minds automatically connect them as cause and effect. This automatic linking serves an evolutionary purpose, helping us identify threats and understand our environment quickly. In rare medical cases, this connection is physically severed, creating what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. The brain struggles to reconcile separate sensory inputs that should logically be connected but aren't. This phenomenon demonstrates how our perception of reality depends on the brain's ability to create coherent narratives from sensory data. When that narrative-building process breaks down, it reveals the fragile nature of how we construct meaning from experience. Understanding this mechanism helps explain why certain cases create such profound psychological impact on investigators and observers. Even with concrete evidence like recordings, logs, or physical remains, our understanding of events can still contain critical, unresolved gaps. This serves as a reminder of evidential humility in investigations. When facts contradict each other, the solution is not to dismiss one set of facts. Instead, investigators must acknowledge that the contradiction exists. This acknowledgement is a crucial step in the investigative process. It requires accepting that our current understanding may be incomplete. This principle applies across various fields, from financial audits to criminal inquiries. The lesson is to maintain intellectual rigor by not forcing a narrative when evidence resists it. The system refers to documented procedures and protocols that were supposed to be followed. The recording is an audio or video file that captured events as they occurred. Forensic evidence involves the scientific analysis of physical or digital materials. Each element is verifiable and exists independently as a piece of documentation. The contradiction emerges when these verified components are compared against one another. This gap can indicate missing information, procedural failure, or deliberate obfuscation. Such discrepancies are a common investigative focus in cases of fraud or cover-up. The core mystery is not in the evidence itself, but in the logical space it fails to explain.
Curious? Subscribe and step through the next anomaly.